Away from Syria on to America. Well, there's been a massive flip-flop that has taken place in America under President Biden. From his earlier stance, he has completely changed his view when it comes to his son, Hunter Biden. In fact, he has now been given the presidential pardon. The move effectively reverses Biden's past promises not to use the extraordinary powers of the presidency for the benefit of his family members. The unprecedented Sunday pardon has been granted for a range of federal felony gun and tax convictions. Hunter Biden was convicted in June in Delaware federal court of 3 felonies for purchasing a gun in 2018. And as per prosecutors, he lied on a federal form by claiming he was not illegally using or addicted to drugs. Hunter was set to stand trial in September in California case accusing him of failing to pay at least $1.4 million in taxes. But he agreed to plead guilty to misdemeanor and felony charges in a surprise move hours after jury selection was set to begin with. Hunter was pleading guilty in that case to spare his family more pain and embarrassment. That's what he said. And this after the gun trial aired some salacious details about his struggles with a crack cocaine addiction. The tax charges against Biden Jr. carry up to 17 years behind bars, and the gun charges are punishable by up to 25 years in prison. That's what the presidential pardon has actually taken and freed Biden Jr. from. Now, what's more bizarre, the sweeping pardon covers not just those offenses, it also covers any other offenses, quote unquote, against the United States, which he has committed or may have committed or taken part in during the period from 1st of January 2014 till 1st of December 2024. So all past demeanor and acts of Hunter Biden has been pardoned by the president, sitting president and his father. Let's get in Nicholas from UK. He's a journalist and a former BBC editor to really talk more about the ramifications of this. Appreciate you joining us and taking out the time. Sir, my question to you really is that, this is hypocrisy probably in its shining hour, where the president was on record time and again saying that he's not going to interfere and let the Department of Justice continue with its proceedings and let the law take its course. But here he is, weeks before demitting office, using his extraordinary powers as the president.
Well, I think my reaction would be one of enormous surprise, and I'll explain why. I don't have an axe to grind in US politics, but I did study law very many years ago, and I know how important in our country, in Britain, and indeed in many other countries, is the rule of law. And what seems to be going on here is a relaxation of the rule of law for personal reasons. I'm widening this a bit. It's not just about Hunter Biden. It's about the expectation that President-elect Trump will also pardon himself retrospectively for things he's been already convicted for. Now, I don't know if that will be the case, but that is the wide expectation. And if our Constitution means anything, it means you uphold the rule of law. And in other words, you let the legal process take place regardless of who's in power. Governments do not have a right to interfere with the legal process. That's a very, very solid principle in Britain. And I'm just surprised that it isn't any longer in the United States. And I think the present generation might have forgotten the famous incident that brought down former President Nixon, captured very neatly in that 2008 film Frost Nixon. Nixon, as president, claiming that a president could not break the law. And that claim effectively brought him down. So what's happened to the rule of law in the United States? That's my feeling.
That's a great example that you've given, and really highlights that sitting at a distance from what's happening in American democracy, one really sees how the ideals that are enshrined in the American Constitution, which they hold so dear to, are not being followed. Then let me ask you this, that as President Biden really demits office in a couple of weeks, this could really be his legacy, isn't it? That he spent the 4 years, a large part of his administration and his presidency, talking about the fact that he will let the law take its own course, and weeks before demitting office, he just went back on all of that. That may effectively be his legacy.
Well, I suspect not. I suspect his legacy will be rather greater than that. In other words, it'll be concerned with more important things. Perhaps we should wait to judge his legacy until he has demitted office, as you say. But I think this will blow over, to be honest. But I think you will next be looking at this subject when President-elect Trump takes office and perhaps wants to follow the Biden example. And when people criticize him for giving himself immunity from prosecution retrospectively, then he will say, but Biden did it, why can't I do it? Now, admittedly, in Biden's case, it's not about himself. It's about his son. That perhaps makes it a little bit more tenuous, I would say. He's not talking about his own situation. But you used the word hypocrisy. I don't think I'd go quite that strong. I'm just going to say enormous surprise that he has gone back on his word by freeing, I mean, that's a strange word to use, but by acquitting his son of the various charges against him, which, let's face it, were charges by the state against the individual about escaping tax, which are considered to be quite serious offences when you take account of the amounts involved. So I've said surprise, and I will say disappointment, because I believe that a country that's as strong in its democracy as the United States should show a better commitment to the rule of law, even when it affects individual cases. So you're right, it'll be a blemish to Mr. Biden's reputation, but I think perhaps it'll only be a tiny part of it when we consider the strength of his presidency overall.
Okay. All right, sir. Thank you so much for speaking to me on an issue I believe that most Americans would also have a very strong view on, given the fact that it talks about the very backbone and spine of their democratic framework. Thank you so much for speaking to me on India Global.